big idea. Bye. Okay. But yeah, I'm like, well, because you're 20 years old and you're not 7, and therefore the Star Wars magic is a little gone. Yep, Superman.
I saw the prequels first, and
Oh, wow.
I'm so sorry.
yeah, I liked them when I first saw them, but now looking back, I realize they're terrible.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Part of
Like,
the problem with the prequels is...
Oh, wait, do you guys want to introduce yourselves first?
oh, do you want to go, Tom, or should I?
Yeah, Tuck, go first.
He's better than me.
I got some credit for James.
Okay.
I'll take it. I'm James, as I said at our panel. A few of you might know me as Elisar. I'm a writer for morepower.com, and that's how I got here.
All right.
We've lost Todd, so we're
Well,
going
and as I
around.
said, I'm Liz. I'm a librarian, pop culture junkie, Star Wars fan since roughly age 7.
Six on mine.
Yeah. Age 6. Well, you're also younger than me. There's so many people here who are younger than me.
You're old, Liz.
I know.
You're old and broken, and no one likes you.
So many gray hairs. Todd, alrighty.
I'm Todd. Alongside knowing these two, I tend to, and helping out some of their panels, I tend to do amateur film review on the side, which keeps me busy and whatnot. As far as Star Wars goes, I'm not gonna lie, when I came to this panel, I started getting Vietnam-style flashbacks about the days leading up to the Phantom Menace.
And that's actually a good segue for us. So, a lot, as you all said, you were kind of around for the Phantom Menace, seeing it in theaters. Now, we were all teenagers at the time, roughly.
I was 9 years old in the Phantom
Okay,
Menace.
so now another question. Who here remembers the hype, like the magazine hype, the commercial hype, this movie's gonna break box office records?
I smell an excuse for visual aid.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, what Todd has, thankfully for everyone, and again, too bad our computer can't work because we're going to put this on overhead, but he has a few old issues of Cinescape from 1999.
This was a magical and kind of disturbing time in a weird way, now I look back on.
Yeah, so if you want to get a good look at the hype machine, here we go. Or I remember reading Entertainment Weekly and hearing, like, this is going to break Titanic's record, which...
That actually is also hyped in here.
Yeah, I do need to remind everyone, unfortunately, Titanic's record was only broken by Avatar.
The one movie on Earth is mediocre as it.
You know, at least Titanic had a boat sinking and the guy falling off the propeller.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like 5 minutes of like a 14-hour
Okay,
movie.
James, and nothing else, look at it this way. Compare, as like, you have Leonardo DiCaprio and
Alright,
We can't talk. Let's not talk about
Like,
Titanic.
okay, I'll at least just say, only one that was actually he led by a talking wooden board that is Sam Worthington.
Yeah.
True.
Okay, so again,
Boards.
the hype machine was in full swing, and again, this was also off the heels of the 1997 re-releases, which
everyone loved.
Well, there was still that.
Who remembers?
What the hell happened to the cantina?
Exactly. Yeah, and the Jabba's Palace song, like, why? What is this? That really, I will say this. That should have been our first indication that these prequels were going to go horribly, horribly wrong.
I'm going to own up to something here. Having read some of the earlier drafts of the Star Wars script, yes, it could be infamous the Star Wars, which is pretty terrible.
Yep.
I know that Lucas had initially wanted Greedo to fire first in some drafts. So when they said they were doing this, like, okay, I can maybe kind of live with this. I'm not opposed to the idea in concept. I don't think it's that good, but I can at least live with it. It was the way it was done that was awful. It was such a terrible edit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and in the back?
We can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we could go on and on about it, but have you guys ever seen the Nostalgia Critics top 11 good things about the Star Wars prequel?
No, we're more here to talk about, like, in kind of a more cultural fandom.
I'm gonna be honest. A lot of my problems with Star Wars prequels aren't even problems with the Star Wars movie. It's the fact that they're more like back, they're just.
They're poor
We'll
movies.
discuss this later. I do think there are some things they do right, especially the score. But,
Yes.
The score's good. Some of the casting on paper is actually great.
Yeah, and
the problem is that all the good things are dragged down by things that are bad.
Yeah.
Like the fight scenes are well choreographed, but I don't care. Oh, this dude who I don't know is fighting this other dude who I don't care about, and this dude I know who's going to live.
Yeah, so the excitement was, I remember being so happy because I'm like, oh my gosh, George Lucas is directing it. And please keep in mind, I was 13. I didn't know what good directing was. George Lucas is writing again, please keep in mind. I never really checked the names and credits on the back. I didn't know that Star Wars was best when you took it away from George Lucas and said, you got some good ideas, we're going to give it to people who know what they're doing. So, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. At Family Menace, I remember talking to Ray Park last November.
Yeah.
Oldest Guinness up in Super Fest.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he really thinks it's the greatest movie that ever.
Bless his heart.
You sure he's not lying?
The
to
man's
me?
a trooper, I'll give him that.
Okay, I will actually, and we'll get into this. So, again, the excitement level for me and everything was just so high. So I remember going to school. I found my mom's old the costume Halloween makeup. I did my face up like Amidala, and then I had my mom drive me to the theater opening day. I kind of don't regret that because I'm like, yeah, it's just proto cosplay. Yeah. So I went, I saw it, and I actually loved it. So how did you feel?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've heard all this argument about how, oh, well, kids like Jar Jar Binks. I was
Fuck no, they don't.
I was 9 years old when the Phantom Menace came out, and every single time Jar Jar Binks showed up, I was like, no, patronize me.
Yeah.
I
So
think-
Todd, how did you feel when you saw Phantom Menace?
First, I will say on Jar Jar Binks, and I know you guys are going to I will say devil's advocate moment. I do not think he's a good character. I think he's a loud, inadvertently racist, annoying piece of CGI garbage.
Oh my god.
At the same time, however, I have to give Ahmed best points in that he's the only person that blasted movie who was actually emoting.
Get out.
You know, he's right. Like, you look at
You're walking home.
You look at Liam.
Liz, it's my car.
You look at Liam Neeson in that movie, and the other movie Liam Neeson was in that year was the Haunting remake.
1999 was a very cruel
And
year
he
for
just,
Liam Neeson.
he just
It was the
not-
cruelest year since. Oh, I'm not even gonna make that joke. Or until I'm not gonna make that joke.
he was,
Now
he-
who's getting out?
Liam Neeson did not want to be there. I don't know if he was being directed badly. Like, you see this Natalie Portman. They were both good actors.
Yeah.
They'd given good performances before that.
Yes.
They gave good performances after that.
Yes.
Either they don't want to be there, or they are being directed horrifically.
As far as how I felt about the movie at the time, I went in hearing a lot of the flack, because I'll admit, I didn't get to see it opening day. I heard a lot of people going, this is awful, so I was like, okay, I'll keep this in mind. And I walked in going, well, Jar Jar is kind of a putz, but overall I didn't think it was that bad. It wasn't until rewatching it later going,
Yeah.
my god, was all the dialogue this redundant?
I think there's a point, and this is, I'm not going to get into screenplay structure here, but there is a point in this movie where you realize, if you know what you're looking at, that nothing anyone does makes any sense.
No, it really doesn't. We were rewatching it a few months ago in preparation for this, and not only is the entire structure of the film,
Oh god.
it's terribly structured. I mean,
The
say
second act is an hour long.
Yeah, say what you will about how long the Lord of the Rings films are. For the most part, they're at least structured well, and they kind of move along a bit. I mean, but this is just—it's more of a series of things. And that's okay when it's an anthology film. It's not okay when it's supposed to be a story with a beginning, middle, and end.
If you actually try and break down the structure as it's dictated in the film, you come to the conclusion that Qui-Gon is actually insane. And you're not just listening to him because he's a Jedi.
He's
You're
Liam
basically
Neeson.
watching the Star Wars universe version of Bagheera, the Wrath of God.
It's Liam Neeson. He protects you from wolves, Nazis, and sex traffickers. You want to trust him.
Don't forget mobsters.
And monsters.
So, again, the reason, and I'm so glad you saved these, is because we're going to have readings from the articles on this. Honestly, this is why we wanted to really have the panel, is just so we could find an excuse to bring these out.
We're being honest
Well,
here, folks. Just you're in for about an hour of us just
I will
bitching.
concede.
No, not me. I actually have a way I want to go about this.
Rereading this
Don't
article,
be
I
bitching.
will actually concede they do address a lot of the pre-hype criticisms of what might people not like. Will people not like Jar Jar? There's advanced talk about Anakin that people aren't really feeling. And they try to kind of offer some counterbalance. The problem is, they were offering a counterbalance from people who George Lucas personally knew. Probably the most glowing piece in here, and I read this in the hotel on Thursday and we lost it laughing,
God.
is a statement. This is a statement from the director and former child actor Ron Howard. Can I actually find the exact spot here?
No, his statement
Yeah.
is,
Happy
this is a
Days-
story of a wealthy family who lost everything.
Yeah. So he's also in Happy Days, but he got anyone who doesn't know, you probably knew, got to start as the little kid on the Andy Griffin Show.
Yep. Okay, first in describing the movie, he's quoted saying, "It is terrific, visually stunning, characters are really interesting, especially some of the alien characters. It takes that aspect of Star Wars series to a whole other level. What I saw was still unfinished, only had the effects run, I can't wait to see the finished version. I was excited and enthralled by what I did see." And later they actually had him talk, apparently in the weeks leading up to this news, we get printed an article regarding their fact that there was some negative buzz about Jake Lloyd's acting.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes, I realized he was a child at the time, I can only be
Well,
Well, you know what? This
so
was the
far.
same year we had Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, so there's no excuse.
Anyway,
Star
Former
Wars.
Lucas colleague Ron Howard wrote a letter in retort to this, in which he called the Newsweek prequel piece, quote, snide and insipid, and went on to say, "I seriously doubt that the insiders you mentioned are insiders to have seen an edited version of the new Star Wars, because I have, and in my opinion, Jake was terrific in the film, which, by the way, is truly amazing." Mr. Howard then spent the following 3 months in a coma after choking on some crow.
That's the thing about Jake Lloyd. Like, I do feel bad for making fun of him because he killed. What am I talking about? No, I don't. But that's the thing. Like, I've seen kids give Oscar-worthy performances. We saw that girl in Beasts of Southern Wilds.
Quavanja Hay Wallace.
She gave an
No
Oscar
formal
performance
training.
at 6 years old. This
And
was a
going
story-
older,
The kids from Moonrise Kingdom. The
Kids Moonrise, or really going back, Tatum O'Neal in the Paper
Yeah.
Moon, and Anna Paquin in The Piano, who won the Oscar at 11.
That's the
You're
thing. Like,
naming mostly females, maybe that was the problem.
well, that's the thing. Like, this is
Well,
a
we did
Star
have
Wars.
Haley Joel Osment.
We had the kid from Moonrise Kingdom. I
Yeah.
forget his name.
Who, as fun fact,
Oh, no,
apparently
no,
did
no.
audition for Anakin.
This was a Star Wars movie. You got to play young Darth Vader. They had, I guarantee you, they had a line around the planet to play this kid. Why couldn't they find someone who could functionally emote?
Oh, go on. What do you think?
Just so you know, speaking of which, when they were getting Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones,
Yeah.
the one kid they picked had never seen a Star Wars film.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I don't want to hold that against a kid, because he looked pretty young, but at the same time, you can still give a background to, background stuff to a kid and say, all right, do this. The girl, Chloe Moritz Grace, the girl who played Hit Girl in Kick-Ass, she never read Kick-Ass. They just said, okay, this is what you do in this scene. So I don't know if that can be held against
Along the
kid.
same lines, Linda Blair never read the novel for The Exorcist, got an Oscar
Thank
nomination
goodness.
for that one.
That poor child.
There is one thing though, is that I don't know, the way I see it is that it's not so much the actor's fault as the director's, because remember, previously winning actors, like
That's
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things which really bugged me with the
Yeah.
prequels. I mean, you look at the first 3 films, yeah, the acting's not stellar, but you look, there are a lot of amateur talent. They hadn't really been proven yet. They were still learning the ropes. You look at the cast they gathered for the prequels.
Yeah.
You have Oscar nominees, people who have made a big impression in these scenes. These shouldn't have just been as good as the prequels. But they should have been as good
Yeah.
as the trilogy. They should have had
I
better
have some
acting.
notes I
Go
took
on.
when I.
Well, I'm pretty sure I saw an interview where George Lucas said he hates actors. He hates
Oh,
actors.
he definitely does.
He loves CGI because it'll do whatever he wants.
And that, you know what, I remember, when I saw The Phantom Menace for the second time, and
I am
please
worried that
keep
part
in-
of that was all those memories of having to deal with Harrison Ford
Yeah.
coming back.
Please keep in mind that, and I'll just say, I saw The Phantom Menace twice within 2 weeks. After I saw The Phantom Menace again, I don't think I saw The Phantom Menace again until I recently rewatched it. Because I just remembered looking at it like, I'm essentially watching a 2-hour, computer program. And I think the main problem with the prequels, and I think why they're so disappointing, is George Lucas is a man who has some amazing ideas. I really, as much as I say, oh, he ruined my life in jest, the man also, from his head, or whatever influences he took from, stuff like The Hidden Fortress, Flash Gordon, he gave, John Carter also influenced him, Edgar Rice Burroughs. The man still gave us these ideas that gave us 3 wonderful films. But, you start to realize, and again, we kind of saw this with the prequels as well, is, maybe it's best when someone just says, you got some great ideas, whereas now we're going to give this to people who know how to write scripts and structure, people who know how to direct.
I really marvel no one apparently bothered to edit the Phantom Menace script because a serious editor going through it could probably cut half the dialogue out.
So you look at the original Star Wars movies, and a lot of that was based on what they could actually physically accomplish. Like they had to stop doing things they would work. A lot of it was, well, he originally wanted Han Solo to be a frog person. He originally wanted C-3PO to be like a slimy used car salesman. And that's stuff that doesn't work. But I have some notes I took on the Phantom Menace here.
Okay.
And one of my favorites is, well, besides "It won't end, dear God, why won't it end?" Is just like a count that I have of actor not wanting to be like Natalie Portman doesn't want to be here. Check one. Now checking in with Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's weird robot voice, the black dude who makes sense, and Maester Crescent.
Actually, there is one quote, I've been trying to find this because I first found this years ago. Christopher Lee apparently had one very sarcastic comment, or at least as sarcastic as a gentleman.
Have a sarcastic comment?
Well, it's a very sarcastic comment about the filmmaking process, and I'm pretty sure it's said sarcasm because I doubt he would have done this. So I was like, I think it's just wonderful working on these movies. We don't have to sit here and recite our lines; they just make the whole film around us.
Yeah, I do realize that sometimes that needs to be done. Sin City, I think, had to be shot a lot on the green screen, but that works. In this one, it really was a case of, I think George Lucas was so enamored with what he could do with his computer, he forgot that there's people around there that need to, have things done and be told what to do. So, again, after that, I mean, after the Phantom Menace premiered, like, I do remember seeing the articles of, like, the Phantom Menace is well, it's making money, but it bombs critically. It makes money, but it still underperforms way below the expectations of what people thought. People thought it would break $1 billion.
That's the thing about Star Wars movies. Like, I said this about the new one. The new Star Wars movie could be about.
We're not ripping.
I know, but this is the thing about Star Wars. Like, it doesn't matter how disappointed you are in it. It doesn't matter how nervous you are about the upcoming ones. It's going to make money on its name.
Yeah, it is.
Your opinion of the movie is removed from the process.
Yeah. So afterwards, I mean, I do remember like, oh, the Phantom Menace is terrible, but. And there were actually a lot of people like, God, that sucked. I don't even know if I want to see part 2. And of course, we all lined up to see part 2.
Speak for yourself. I was able to maintain a shield of plausible deniability up until episode 3 came. I was like, I went to midnight showing episode 3 and.
And I thought one of the worst things that seemed like a giant plot hole to me that didn't have any type of real rhythm or explanation. Why the hell is your whole planet like 16 years
Well, in the original movie, that could have made sense. Just like in the first movie, it would make sense because oh well, she was next in line for the throne. Then you find out in the next movie that that's an elected position. How did that happen?
I'm gonna be honest.
I don't think George Lucas keeps continuity notes. Is all I'm saying.
I'm gonna be honest because I made it.
I think it did crack.
Huh?
I think it did crack.
No, it didn't. It got like 700 million.
It might have with inflation.
Yeah.
But at the time, they don't. With inflation, it might.
Funny thing, a movie could be bad, make that type of money.
And then of course they still.
Transformers movies have
they learned nothing.
The first three collectively grossed $2 billion.
Yeah.
They're the worst things ever made.
One of the things that I realized when rewatching these films, for the longest time, my least favorite character in the movies was Jar Jar. He's still number 2. Don't get me wrong. But the more I look back, as we were rewatching it for this panel, and also because James and I kind of did a commentary track for project, I realized my least favorite character in these movies now is actually Padme. And it's not even, it's like, I want to be clear, it's not a sexism thing, because frankly, if she were a man, she'd still be pretty frustrating. It's the fact that she is just an incredibly unreasonable character in general. Oh God, where to begin? I think the moment that really ruined it for me was the Senate scene. You're this small little planet, you have little tactical value, little financial value. You're basically a glorified tourist spot. I know apparently they wrote some backstory about how they have a wonderful mining industry, but we never see that in the film. As far as the film is concerned, it's just this pleasant little garden spot. That's all it is. We don't even know why the Trade Federation wants it so badly.
That's the big problem with the movie.
The problem is, it's this very minor planet, and when they don't get their way, what does Padme do? She overthrows the whole freaking Senate. And if she had some clout to be one thing, but no, she just basically holds her breath and turns blue until the Senate does what she wants it to.
She goes and does it on her own anyway.
And in the process, destroys the galaxy.
And can't really tell she turns blue because of all the makeup she's wearing.
Well, I meant purely figuratively, but
I'm sure.
while we're on the subject of great space politics, Well, first of all, didn't Jar Jar put Palpatine to power?
We're trying to avoid. What are we trying to avoid? Talk about the other prequels.
Well,
okay, except in relation to
in relation
Phantom
to
Menace.
this,
Because I don't think Phantom Menace is the worst prequel.
I don't
And-
think
Oh,
they're-
God.
well.
That-
Okay,
that-
in about 5 minutes, we're kind of going to be getting to like, what do we think is the worst? Then we're going to open it
The
up.
worst
more.
Star Wars movie is clearly the holiday special.
Oh, way in the back, yeah.
James, that's not a movie, it's a Nightmare
Oh,
Fever dream.
I can't hear you.
Is there ever a reason given for why Gunray did the trade blood game?
Nope.
Never.
No.
But even rewatching it, we're like, because I remember upon the rewatch, I'm like, at first I'm like, man, did Lucas really think that kids would like to watch this? I think one of the reasons the Star Wars film works is the simplicity of it. It's really not that complicated.
Actually,
it's fun.
This was the fun
Yeah.
thing. I did some research just to see if maybe there was a backstory mention in some expanded universe novel not that those count anymore. But anyway, even the most I can find in terms of the history of Naboo, again, they're a planet with little to no real galactic value. The only reason the side stories give for them getting picked is they didn't bend over and spread their cheeks to the Trade Federation.
Dude, really? Come on. PG-13 panel.
That is still PG-13, Liz. Welcome to the new world. But the problem is basically that, even then, that's never mentioned in the film. All we know in the film is the Trade Federation just set up camp outside Naboo's
They
backyard.
briefly mention something about taxation, but they don't really elaborate on it to have
Even the
any idea
novels
what that
don't
means.
explain why the taxation's an issue.
Like, why would the
It's
Trade
just-
Federation be getting
Why
taxes?
would
They're
5-year-olds
a
care about
corporation.
taxation? We just want to watch lightsaber fights, for God's sake. I'm 13 and I just wanted to see
There's
lightsaber
a
why
fights.
really big problem in these movies with show, don't tell, because like they never tell us what the Trade Federation problem is. They say
Okay,
there's
we need to get onto them.
okay, they're slaughtering our people. We never see them slaughter the people. There's no sense of stakes from that.
It's a giant tell, don't show problem.
You have a thought?
So, but it's just before we go on to, the Phantom Menace gets a lot of flack, but is it really the worst? We did some digging, and again, this is why we're sad the laptop battery ran out. It's because who here remembers some of the god-awful, weird toys that came out, especially in relation to Darth Maul and Jar Jar Binks? I'm not talking about the action figure dolls or the double-bladed lightsaber, which even I'm gonna admit, it's really cool.
I will say,
have one.
I do have to make one odd shot for the action figures. They led to probably the weirdest gimmick Star Wars figures have done to this day was the little voice chip things, which are now pretty much worthless.
Yes,
Oh,
the
yes.
tongue lollipop. Thank
I
you.
actually tried to find the most horrifying pieces of Star Wars merchandise. That was one of them. The other was, it was a giant inflatable chair where you sit in Darth Maul's lap.
Who in their right mind would want to sit in Darth Maul's lap?
It's
sit on
basic-
my lap.
You're
I
basically-
understand advertising. I understand hype. I understand that these movies exist to sell toys now. But for the love of God, some of these things just don't make sense.
Think
You
about
than
this.
you.
Yeah.
Well, to go on to this merchandise, I actually had Qui-Gon Jinn,
Go on.
like a Qui-Gon Jinn bank, like a piggy bank.
You
But
put
why
coins
Qui-Gon
in his
Jinn?
mouth?
Okay, now what happened? The whole thing is that this was one of three. You had Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. You put all of them together. You could, whenever you put coins in them, they would animate and do like a whole fight.
Okay, that's actually
I'm getting a
That's
feeling
not bad.
that,
I gotta
that
get
your
it.
Darth Maul band is gonna have a hostile takeover your Qui-Gon Jinn one. You had a
I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I feel like I failed in her favorite.
how?
Okay, you did not fail, she failed.
She's 17 and obsessed with Darth Maul.
I'll give her,
Good thing that she
I'll
was
kind
wrong.
of give her this. I do think visually, Darth Maul, like I was very excited for him. Darth Maul visually looks like he could have been a great villain. And Star Wars has a history of these, kind of one-note villain, people, characters becoming big. Look at Boba Fett.
That's the thing.
I know.
I think
Yeah.
Lucas deliberately wants to make another Boba Fett.
You
with
can't
Darth
make
Maul.
another
I don't-
Boba Fett. Boba Fett just happened.
I don't know if I was when I first thought this or if I'm ripping this from someone, but I've heard Boba Fett compared to Irene from Sherlock Holmes, and that fans are obsessed with them, even though they're basically only in one little bit of it and they're not all that important.
Yeah. He looks cool, but no, I think a
cool.
lot of it is the visual design. So,
It's right art, too.
yeah, that's
So
true.
sorry about
Everybody's
people over
done that.
here, our necks aren't really turned over here yet.
I just found my Darth Maul chair.
You had the Darth Maul. Oh my God! Come here, I want to high five you.
Did it make molester noises whenever you sat down?
It's so uncomfortable to sit in.
Seriously, I want to know who thought that was a great idea. You have a Sith Lord, he's a trained killer, who basically looks like a clown from hell with the mouth of a meth addict.
Oh my God.
And you're gonna let your child sit in his lap.
Really, that's like letting your kid sit in Santa Claus's lap when the Santa Claus has sores on his mouth.
And he reeks of whiskey.
I want you to know
Yeah.
how committed I am to making this panel PG-13, because they will tell you I could take this to dark places.
Oh yeah. So now I will. The other two prequels came out, and I always hear like, oh, they're not that bad. Like I hear people
Attack of the
defending
Clones is
them.
worse.
I hear people giving Revenge of the Sith a lot of leeway, which I don't think it should be given. But I'll do that in another few years when the Sith turns 13.
I will defend Revenge of the Sith for the wrong reasons.
No, you shouldn't.
I think it's inadvertently pretty damn funny. Again, it's not supposed to be, but it is.
The thing is, my problem with Attack of the Clones, I talked briefly about how
I was about to say, who here actually thinks that The Phantom Menace is the worst of the prequels?
It's the only one of the prequels I saw.
Oh.
Okay, so who's seen
I
all?
think it
You're
has-
allowed to have a vote though, because this is, so.
This
who
is
here-
democracy.
Yes, it's democracy. So who here thinks Phantom Menace is actually the worst? All right, it's a good number. Who here thinks it's either Attack of the Clones or Sith? So who here thinks it's Attack of the Clones? All right, because my point is I've always said, is the Phantom Menace as bad as everyone says? Yes, it's poorly structured, poorly acted, poorly directed. It's all around.
Visually written.
It's not a fun. And this is the thing. Star Wars is fun. The worst thing is it's not a fun experience. These should be fun. And in Sith, you are kind of right. It's funny, but it's not supposed
It's got a
to
couple
be.
of really killer lightsaber duels.
Yeah.
And they gave a few memes from it.
Yeah, you got a few memes, but Attack of the Clones has nothing going for it. And this is, you'd think they would have learned their lesson after Jake Lloyd as Anakin, and then they
I
cast
almost
Hayden
missed.
Christensen.
See, I almost missed Jake Lloyd after Hayden Christensen because Jake Lloyd was insufferable and wooden, but Hayden Christensen was a creeper.
Yes, uniform?
A while ago, I watched a YouTube video from the Nostalgia Critic.
Yep.
And he was saying that he's Hayden was his name Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
He was saying that.
See, he doesn't want you to say what you're about to say.
He knows.
He said that he's not a bad actor. Is that he was directed?
I will actually
they're all
say that
poorly
I have seen him in Shattered Glass, and I was actually very surprised by the performance he gave. I do really kind of want to say a lot of this is George Lucas's fault, but I remember when we saw Chronicle, which is fabulous if you haven't seen it. You really should. Dean DeHaan, yes, fabulous. Dean DeHaan, man, if this had been made 10 years later, would have made a great young
Dean DeHaan is
Anakin.
already
Especially
playing.
because he already looks like he could have been Mark Hamill's father.
Dean DeHaan is currently just played the Green Goblin in the
Oh,
Spider-Man
God,
movie
Dean
we don't
DeHaan,
talk
you have
about.
such potential.
I wanted to say, like I briefly touched on, the weird structure Phantom Menace has. Its second act is
Yeah.
twice as long as any other act in the movie. The structure on Attack of the Clones is bizarre.
Oh,
It's like, Obi-Wan goes and does something. Qui-Gon and Anakin and Padme hang around doing nothing. But Obi-Wan goes
Padme
and
wears
does
more
something.
weird outfits.
Obi-Wan goes and does something. Anakin and Padme do something totally irrelevant.
I have to say, one of the big reasons that I pick Attack of the Clones over Phantom Menace, the Phantom Menace is terrible, don't get me wrong. But it's a self-contained terrible. All it really gives to the long term of the trilogy is you find out Newt Gunray hates Padme. Like, he wants her dead. That's really all you need.
And we also unfortunately find out about midichlorians, but pretty much most Star Wars fans I know do not
So who's a
accept
big fan of
midichlorians.
midichlorians as a concept?
Silence.
Not even someone putting their hand up as a joke.
Really?
Someone put your hand up.
See?
I want to argue with you.
Yes, but I'd rather we spend a half hour explaining it. It would involve a lot of
See,
out here.
the midichlorians, the one way I might have almost given them some leeway was if they had done something, which I know Lucas would have done because it would have bumped Revenge of the Sith into a solid R, would be if they actually played with the fact Anakin's force rating would be that high. Like, I would have wanted to
Be
see
over
him go.
9,000?
I would have essentially wanted to see him going like Tetsuo from Akira, just
Yes.
annihilating Jedi with a wave of his arm.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah? Gotta not
I don't need to point out something. it felt like they already explained what the Force was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, that's another reason the prequels themselves don't work, is they're almost retconning things that happened in the future.
Oh, and also part of the
So, yeah, go on, sorry.
Well,
I did say this was audience participation, so audience goes
well,
first.
Star Wars in itself is not really a sci-fi.
Oh, definitely.
movie.
Science
It's
fantasy.
a fantasy movie in space.
Yeah.
So the
Space does
idea-
not always equal sci-fi.
Right. So the idea of the Force was a mystical thing, and everyone was like, "Cool, we get that. It's mystical.
Yeah.
You don't really have to explain it. It's magical." And then to say it's midi-chlorians is almost like, let me try to put some type of faux fake science.
Sci-fi
It's
is.
thinking about the
The
old wider universe, like its application in the actual real universe.
I
both
actually,
with
I
internal
would
mechanics.
like to recommend, and this is very appropriate for the panel. Who here has seen the documentary The People versus George Lucas? Yeah, there are people who make the argument, you know, beyond that movie. Who made the argument that I don't think George Lucas really knows that much about what he created anymore.
Well, that,
And he's just kind of talking out of
You
his
look at
butt.
you see this in the special editions. He wants I can see him feeling what I feel he's trying to do is correct in his mind. And I'm trying to avoid psychoanalyzing George Lucas, but you see this with the Greedo shot first thing. Like he's trying to do it like this is what I wanted. It doesn't matter what they want. It doesn't matter what we all decided was better. This is what I want, so that's what's going to happen.
part of the
And
problem
we
with
were-
midichlorians, it's a means to an end. Like, it's only there to set up the whole chosen one thing by giving Anakin a measurable
He
power.
was the
And
chosen one.
I don't even like the idea of Anakin being the chosen one. What is so wrong with the idea there was once this really good Jedi that
It's
just really
It's
went dark?
exactly the same thing when I said they do show don't tell. They never tell us what the prophecy is, where it came from,
Yeah.
who made it, what is exactly does it say, because what it says changes slightly from movie to movie. You had a question, then you.
Yeah, first I just thought that George Lucas had too much influence over Steven Spielberg to the fact that Steven Spielberg added all that additional stuff to the ET.
Oh,
which
God,
was
yeah.
the movie, and I
To his
totally
credit,
blame that on
Spielberg at
George
least
Lucas.
admitted he made a mistake.
Yep.
And
Well,
you get
I think,
theatrical cuts of
are
ET.
we talking about the omission of guns?
Yeah.
And the additional showing ET's power.
That is true. I also believe that the reason the omission of the guns was also we had although not that it really matters now, a couple of really bad school shootings at the time, and I think he just took that out to be like, you know what, I don't even want trouble at this point. So I kind of that was sort of like one of those rumor mill things. If that is the case, I kind of can't.
The other
believe
problem, you
that.
can still get a theatrical cut of ET. If you
Yeah.
want the Love Conquers All cut
Of Brazil, we were
get it.
discussing this earlier.
You want the terrible theatrical edited Blade Runner? It's right there with the final cut.
Exactly, but
Exactly.
you cannot get the theatrical. Like I have the DVD set that had the theatrical cuts of Star Wars as a bonus feature.
And even that, he only met
It's
people
just a
halfway.
laziness.
It's,
I
it's
don't
a laziness
understand what
transfer.
pathology is
Yeah,
about
so
this.
I was discussing earlier, we were sort of shooting the breeze that Disney finds some way, because I don't know if this is ever confirmed or
I think
just
it's
a
in his
rumor.
contract that he
Yeah,
can't do that.
but I don't know if it's confirmed or a rumor that they can't do that. But I hope Disney might just be like, you know what? We have Mickey Mouse on our side. We're gonna find
We've got
something.
Disney has the
Marvel
best
We got
lawyers.
Marvel money.
You and then you.
The
you
George
get it.
Lucas, people from George Lucas documentary, didn't they say that to make the special editions, George Lucas tore up like the master copies?
He says that,
He
but
says
he can't. You can't actually like. I
It's
want
not
to say you can't
confirmed.
actually do
On
that.
top
Like
of
it's
that,
in the
there's
Library
still
of
a possibility.
Congress.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like if there's a Library of Congress, you probably still
Yeah.
got to be a backup.
Again, my librarian sense comes in where I'm like, it's like not exactly there are big cuts that.
You read a comic and then you.
Yeah.
Well, in the original Star Wars, Obi-Wan's like, yeah, Anakin was a real good friend.
Oh God.
I hate you.
The-
And he will do exactly as I say.
What?
He put together a whole video that was like, he was a skilled pilot. I'll try spinning. That's a good trick. And a cunning warrior. I'm gonna take him now. No, Anakin, no.
No.
He was a good friend.
No.
I was very
All
proud
the
of that
no.
video. You. Speak up. Speak up.
If you're interested in whether the original version still exists, there's a really good website called The Secret History of Star Wars.
Okay.
They have like a lot of like really technical information about film trends and stuff. And, like,
The other thing is, and even if he did destroy his own tapes, someone's going to have tapes.
Oh,
out there.
of course.
We just found a couple of episodes of season 1 Doctor Who back out in the barn in the middle of Africa.
And I was
We will
discussing
find Star Wars.
earlier. Yeah, they found I think like some archive in Argentina. They found 35 extra minutes of Metropolis. Nothing's impossible.
This Star Wars came out in the 70s. We can find
And again,
Star
if it's in
Wars.
the Library of Congress, George Lucas technically, I just cannot technically go
No,
in
I will
there
find Star
to
Wars.
remove it or have it removed because at that point it is protected.
Hell, I will find
George.
Star Wars here. Who has a theatrical cut of Star Wars on VHS still? See, I just found
Hold
Star
them on
Wars.
for dear
As like
life.
George, as a fan of Japanese cinema, I think you know the story about the film A Page of Madness, which was basically found hidden at the bottom of a canister of rice from, I think it was like the 20s,
Yep.
and they restored it.
Yeah.
There was, my dad used to have an original theatrical cut, and he kept it very dearly, and then the dog chewed it past.
My stepmother.
I hope you shot that dog.
My stepmother threw out.
I'm joking.
My stepmother threw out an original issue of the White Album.
Oh.
Ow.
Those aren't that rare.
Those aren't that rare. They feel rare.
I bought them for $20 at a record store.
Okay.
Still $20.
Yeah, that is still $20.
That's still some smack for me.
Yep.
I know maybe a fan edit might not be as much, but has anyone heard of Star Wars Revisited?
Yes.
I heard about that.
What did you think of it? Like, is it?
I need to
I
actually check out the
I
finished
saw
product.
chunks of the Phantom in it,
Yeah.
so I hadn't seen Star Wars.
Well,
Revisited.
it's not poorly edited. It's
Oh no, I totally get that. Like,
it's a
I
labor of love.
Yeah. The one I'm really interested in seeing, and this is sort of like only if you're in Hollywood and you have a lot of money and rich friends you can see, is Topher Grace, the Eric from that 70s show. For those who don't know, apparently cut all three films and re-edited them into one 90-minute film. I would be very interested in seeing.
Everyone
So it's sort
everyone
of
wants
like-
to hear me rant for an hour and a half. I
Like,
can't actually do my
just
idea
to let
for
you
the
know
prequel trilogy.
that the revisit Poncho's
Thank
That reminds me, I
version.
actually
Glorious
heard,
colored HD.
Yeah,
I actually
some
heard
people
about there
always
was
raise
another
their
ad out
hands
there where someone
every
edited
time.
episodes 2 and 3 into a single film. It's just
Yeah.
that's all the prequel story you need.
It really is. I honestly think I'm now thinking the prequels could have just been.
In continuity to what the prequel set up, what is your opinion of the Star Wars, the Clone Wars, the animated one, not the?
I was requested by a friend who is an even bigger Star Wars fan than me. He's part of the Garrison, 501st Garrison. He wanted me to give a shout out to the Clone Wars series. Again, sometimes I like some of the continuity that they have, sometimes they don't, but I will be the first to admit that of all of the prequel stuff we have, the Clone Wars TV series is by far the best of what we have. And it's not just, oh, it's good for a prequel. I believe that it is legitimately good.
I'm about to be Mr. Controversial. I think the Clone Wars are a good series. I think their overall effect on the prequels was bad. Because it means General Grievous wanders in at the very beginning of episode 3. We have no
honestly-
idea who he is.
In all fairness, that's not really their fault because the Grievous they introduced and the Grievous you got in the film were almost two different things. Like, the way the animated version is first introduced Grievous, it's a creepy scene. It is actually really well done. Like, it's this group of 4 Jedi are kind of huddled in hiding, and they're being silently picked off by this guy. He doesn't even say a word. It is an awesome intro.
All right, so one more question, and then we're going to get into the episode 7 as we got about 15 minutes left. Actually, Ears, you haven't gotten to say anything, so.
It's actually super cool. Are you talking about the recent 3D animated one?
I haven't seen that one.
I have not seen the most
That-
recent one. I'm talking about the one that was in sort of like the mid 2000s.
I don't
The
think-
CG series alternates between being really good and really bad. From
I
episode
don't
to
think-
episode.
But I think overall it is.
Oh wait,
I-
and if
I
nothing
really
else,
think it's a good
I haven't seen
it's
the
the
3D.
good person Anakin should have been.
I've seen the 2D one. I haven't
Yeah.
seen the 3D one, but I don't think the minimalist visual design is going to work in 3D animation. That's just, I haven't seen it yet, so I could be wrong.
It's actually not bad for the most part.
Yeah, it's, again, I think it works. I do think, again, you are correct that there are some stinkers in there, but it's.
There are also some really good ones.
Exactly. I think it's kind of like season 4 of 30 Rock. There's some stinkers in there, but overall as a season, it is pretty darn good.
Although it does introduce one accidental continuity
Since season
mystery.
5.
Because Anakin is seen as a compassionate, respected, responsible leader. What happened?
Again, Star
Cocaine
Wars.
is a hell of a drug.
Star Wars works best when it's away from George Lucas, and with that, we are actually going towards, how do we view Episode 7? Now, I know some people who still to this day, like, I cannot watch the original trilogy anymore. Like, the prequels have just ruined Star Wars for me, and to that I say, yes, the prequels are terrible, but get the heck over it.
That's what I'm saying.
It's never gonna change the fact that the original movies are good.
Like, I hate the prequels as much as anyone,
Yeah.
if not more. But nothing if the prequels ruined the originals for you, that's on you.
It really
nothing
is.
nothing but you can ever take away what those movies mean to you.
I mean,
Exactly.
It's the same token. Would you say disown on Star Trek 2 because Star Trek 5 was bad?
Exactly.
Or maybe.
I think if anything, at least for me, and again, this is, personal. This whole panel's kind of personal for me in a weird way, but
Star Wars is personal to some people. What a shock.
but if anything, the prequels actually made me appreciate the original trilogy more because I said, wow, this really was kind of a lightning in a bottle thing where these people got together and somehow it all worked to create 3 great films. They aren't the most amazing films ever made. They aren't the greatest movies ever made. I think stuff like that goes to, films like Breathless, Citizen Kane, Seven Samurai, but they are timeless films. And the fact that, I'm sure, okay, all right. But the fact that, I have babysat children and those have been the VHS tapes I've brought over. I'm sure, I don't know how many of you have kids, but this is what you're showing your children or your nieces and nephews or kids that you babysat that were.
Those kids you kidnap.
Yeah, the kids I kidnapped. Just to specific, I do kidnap children, but it's specifically to show them the original trilogy first and say avoid the prequels. I'm doing a service. No. But it made me appreciate it more. It made me see it not as a Star Wars is awesome. Star Wars, these movies will always be awesome. But it made me kind of see, look, the franchise might not always be awesome, and Episode 7 might not be that great. But the original trilogy was this lightning in a bottle thing, and that's never going to change. And if anything, it just makes me appreciate it more. I don't want to get teary. And you had a question.
Oh, I just wanted to see if, seeing People versus George Lucas or Lincoln reviews and
Yeah.
those were farming experiences.
They kind of, they were.
Yes
and
and no.
I kind of liked them because I liked the Plinkett reviews also got into a lot of the filmmaking technical aspects as well.
Plinkett
It
Review's
was nice
primary
to-
purpose, and this is what their main value to the world is, they are, and speaking as someone who's been to film school, they are a semester of film school you can
They
watch.
really are. If you're interested, some people are interested in
Outside the
just
practical stuff.
story aspects of just, and People versus George Lucas is more for if you're interested in the story and continuity. If you're interested in story and continuity, but also talking about the actual filmmaking aspects, he is correct. It is like sitting in on a film class.
The professor's got a wonderfully macabre sense of humor.
And the way that I'm approaching, with May the 4th, I kind of had this whole, put on my Facebook, any mention of the prequels will be considered blasphemy. And someone said, well, what do you feel about Episode 7? Yeah, burn the heretic. Episode 7, I actually wasn't that pumped up, and my initial thought was kind of look, the original trilogies are great, they were a once in a lifetime, everyone came together and made something wonderful. I really don't know if that can happen. There are some situations on film or on television that cannot be recreated, and I think the original trilogy might be that, but.
I think they've never recorded the magic of the Star Wars holidays.
But I'm actually getting more and more optimistic about Episode 7, especially with the knowing the original 3 will be back, and the casting of Lupita Nyong'o, which I remember when the first castles came out, she wasn't in it, everyone was crying about it, and I just said, you guys, do you think this is the only cast announcement we're getting? She's had way too many meetings with Abrams, and she's just been signed to a major, agency. She's she's in a huge movie, she just won an Oscar. She's getting the role, and when she was announced, I went, call that, and the fact that now supposedly, to the rumor mill, she's playing, a Sith or something, which I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but I'm like, yes, I am all for that.
I'm a little nervous about the new movies, partially because, look, I will say this, I'm trying not to trash Disney, because I know a lot of people get really defensive about Disney. Disney's pure evil.
Well, I do think we're starting to see Disney's influence on the Marvel films have an adverse effect, because, again, this is rumor mill, but it's almost confirmed that the reason Edgar Wright decided to leave the Ant-Man movie is Disney didn't, Marvel was okay with what he was doing because he had been working with Marvel since about 2007, but now Disney's oh, we don't like what you're doing.
Well, that side of Edgar Wright, you look at a lot of decisions they're making now, they're making much safer casting calls, whereas Marvel built its brand on taking the big risks. And
I do think Lupita Nyong'o, who is, as of right now, she's beautiful, but she's well known for being in, the most brutal depiction of American slavery put on film so far, or at least of the new millennium, but So I do think that is still risky. She's not known for a child-friendly film.
The thing about like Disney, I wanted, like, my point was, like, you know, they managed to get the owner of one of the biggest sci-fi franchises on the world and the owner of the biggest kids movies franchise in the world together to have all these meetings. They must have been working on this deal for over a year, and not a single rumor. We didn't hear word one about it until it was already done.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how scary Disney's internal security is?
They must be like stormtroopers, only they can aim right.
That's what I'm worried about with Disney, because Disney is, like, I know people like Disney, they are relentless when it comes to product focusing, and you see this with the new actors, with the old actors coming back.
Yeah.
I don't want the old actors to come back for that much.
That's
just
I want it to be a new story.
I'm trying to be optimistic, but I'm just giving it a few regards. Like, we know apparently they've already had one scriptwriter leave because he disagreed with what the studios wanted.
Yeah,
that's
They
true.
wanted more old cast, he was going.
Also, they're gonna kill off one of the old casts to prove that shit's gotten real in the third act.
and
It's gonna be Han Solo, you heard it here first.
Alongside that, we already know they're basically talking about trying to churn out a new movie every year.
Yeah.
And the directors they're picking, the fact they scooped up Gareth Edwards as soon as Godzilla through the box office, there was that moment of, I'm trying not to be cynical here, Disney, but you're not helping.
Well, and you made this point very well. They're not picking people based on, I think they will be a good fit for the Star Wars franchise. And you know what, many misgivings as I have about Abrams, I do think he's kind of good for this. I think he could make a Star Wars film.
As long as he's not writing it.
As long as he's not writing.
You and then you.
Okay, my question is, seeing the age of the original cast, what the heck are they gonna do on these?
It's
I
gonna be
think they
2
might
hours
be
of
the advice givers.
Honestly,
remember when we were in those movies? That was cool.
Look, he's still working like an old Ben sort of role as a mentor figure now.
I'd kind of like, I'd like to see them work that way, or like, you know, Johnny Boyega, who apparently he might be the main person, who here saw Attack the Block? Yes, Moses is going to be one of the main characters. I am so for that. Like, maybe he'll be on a quest and they'll say, oh, go find these people, and he'll be who. It might even
Luke's
be a
living on
cameo
Dagobah now.
for God's sake. I'd love it if
Don't be
Luke lived on
surprised you don't see
Dagobah. I
Mara
don't
Jade
care.
in there, though. Yep.
I was just gonna say, I think part of the problem that Disney brings to a franchise is, I think Disney, Spielberg, and Lucas have the same problem. They try to take that kind of wonderful, magical 80s Indiana Jones, Star Wars
Fun.
film and put it together with all the CGI, and it really doesn't work that great unless you tell the story really well.
And actually, one of the things I'm actually going to give Abrams a little bit of credit for is he's actually said that he kind of wants to do more practical effects. He doesn't want to rely on computers as much, which kind of made me go, okay, you might be all right here.
On top of that, one of the big problems Abrams has is the writers he's worked with in the past. And so far, Lindelof and Orsi have been kept far away from
Thank
this movie,
Jesus.
so...
You have a thought?
Yeah, just a small speculation. I mean, when I was not around for the, I was not around to see Blobs and Sperm Cell, but
You can't
Oh,
help
God.
that.
Oh, dear God.
How did I get so
We're not gonna get mad at you. Go ahead.
all right, this is still PG-13.
No, that's biology. It's fine.
But were the prequels really a necessary movie to have been made? I mean,
Nope.
I have actually wondered that. I do want sometimes. There were some other prequels as well where I'm like, remember when they made the prequel of The Thing in 2011, which is pretty much like John Carpenter's The Thing, only they say it's about the Norwegian base. Why do we need that? We saw a little bit of what happened at the Norwegian base, and we assumed from there. Sometimes assumption can work.
The metaphor I always make is, who here is a fan of Legend of Zelda? I'm surprised. People always like, oh, I want to know more about this story. Yeah, there was a version of Zelda that we got where Link did talk and we knew a lot about his personality. Excuse me, princess.
Excuse me, princess.
But especially when it comes to storytelling, especially when it comes to backstory, a lot of times less is more, because then you can fill in the backstory for yourself and relate more to the character. I think I think Lucas thought he wanted to tell the story of the Clone Wars, and I don't think people wanted to know more about the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Now that those blanks have been filled in badly, I think people are more unhappy about it.
Yeah, and they're more cautiously optimistic. Oh, go on first, then I'll continue.
Being it's 5 years old and Star Wars fans.
You actually look really young, so
Thank you.
surprised.
It's because you've got the Nick Fury thing going on.
Ages.
I must say, I lived through the hype of Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah,
Return of the Jedi, and I took my daughters in 1821
yeah,
to see this. So this was their impression
yeah.
of Star Wars.
I'm sorry.
It's the hype of just Star Wars. It's you know, I'm just saying, a movie can only be so bad to make the amount of money that it is. Listen,
Oh, yeah, like
that got to be reality without doubt, because in this day and age now,
with the internet, like,
it can only
if
be
this,
so bad.
and I think this is a good point to
No,
make.
that's true up and down, because a lot of times I mean, maybe I'm just being like, I'm just approaching, I've been told I approach movies from a different angle,
You do.
because I went to film
From
school.
a good angle.
But I found that sometimes quality and box office draws
Yeah.
are concurrent. That's not always the case. You know,
Yeah.
Plus
Cloud
that
Atlas
baseball
flopped.
organizations.
Transformers 4 is making $1 billion.
Yes.
Grown-ups too.
Grown Ups 2 was first at the box office. Pacific Rim opened third.
Yeah.
In all fairness,
Be
they're-
ashamed of
they're
yourself,
overseas.
America. Oh, yeah. But I do wonder now, like, I mean, of course, with name recognition, this movie I think is going to make a ton of money regardless. But as you were saying, talking about the hype, and as we were saying about being, you know, I think we're all a little bit more, I think, cautiously optimistic about 7. I remember when 7 was announced, there were some people who were like, oh, this is going to be great, but their immediate thought was, oh, but I remember the prequels. Oh, but George Lucas isn't really involved. Oh,
J.J. Abrams.
well, but beyond that, but they're like, oh, but I remember the last time I got really excited about Star Wars. And I think the fact that we do have more access to what's going on with the internet, with Instagram, with Twitter, I think maybe they're just sending the stuff out to quell our fears, but I think some people are starting to finally feel confident in it.
They definitely have strategic links.
Oh, they definitely
Nothing leaks out of Disney
No.
unless Disney wants it.
That's true, but I think the ultimate lesson that I learned from the prequels, aside from, you can still love the original trilogy, is, look, with episode 7, we're getting new ones. I think cautiously optimistic is the best way to approach it.
Suck.
You know what, maybe if you go in telling yourself that, you might be pleasantly surprised.
That is actually a fairly
Yeah.
cynical, if
Low
practical,
bars.
practical approach, because if it's good and you assume it was going to be bad, you're going to be happy. If it's
Yeah.
good, if it's bad and you assume it's going to be good, you're going to want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe not kill yourself, maybe kill the
Or
filmmakers.
maybe kill the filmmakers.
We're just going to go, this is going to
Or
be a
go
Star
to
Wars
the
movie, I might like it, I might not, and it's okay, because I still have 3 movies that I really like, or 2 if you really don't like Return of the Jedi, because I know a lot of people still don't like that. Okay, you know what, Ewoks, I just want to say that we got 5 minutes left. Please remember that the Ewoks were about to kill and eat Han Solo, and they murdered a bunch of stormtroopers.
We are going to
Yeah.
end this panel and sing along.
Those
with that.
are hardcore teddy bears,
The more I
man.
look back at the more I think Return of the Jedi is kind of dark.
You had a thought?
Yeah, like the thing that has me most worried about the new film is the fact that they're doing one every single year. Like,
Yeah, I think that's going to kill it.
I think if it's like possible to wear out the Star Wars brand, that's what's going
That's
to
what
do
it's
it.
Franchise in
Yeah,
the history of
Disney's
any
too
medium
eager.
has ever been good after being shaken down.
I think a 3-year wait time's always good. I mean, the only time that worked almost was with Lord of the Rings, but that's because people knew it was
It's because
coming.
they filmed all
because-
three
And they
at
filmed
once.
all 3
It's
at
like
once.
that because they already had all the
All right,
story
we have
right
2
there.
more minutes, so a few more questions.
Worst Godzilla.
What?
Worst Godzilla in the 90s.
They're making it.
Yeah.
That's because they were making it very cheap and very on the fly.
Yeah.
And they didn't worry as much about continuity per se.
Does
Exactly.
anyone have any more thoughts before we get to our sing along of Yub Nub?
We're not doing that. I can't sing.
I
Yeah.
thought they agreed it was going to be the Life Day song.
Actually, I'm trying to. Who hasn't said any, actually? Who hasn't said anything yet? Anyone who has
Don't
not
be
had
shy.
a thought.
You can tell us you hate us. We don't
you had
mind.
your hand raised, so.
But the same way that the prequels were kind of unnecessary, I think Star Wars 7, 8, and 9, I mean, they don't really have a reason to exist, and I think people they're kind of turning into, what Final Fantasy ended up turning
Yeah,
into.
it's
Is there a possibility that are only existing as a form of redemption?
maybe I do wonder if they're like, hey guys, we're
Star
sorry
Wars
about the
Episode 7. We're
prequels.
really sorry about those prequels.
To be fair, I mean, no film itself ever truly really has to exist.
They could just be sitting on the floor, eating paste.
Yeah. So I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, like, it could be, it might not have to exist, but it can still be fun. All right, one more.
Well, you know what, I think I think it was David Prowse, but I think David Prowse, way back when, said something
You
about,
mean the man who played Darth Vader physically?
Yes.
Give him some props.
There
Everyone
was-
needs to.
Lucas did originally have plans for 7, 8, and 9. I don't know if they're being followed at all.
12.
Oh, I don't know if we need that many.
I don't know if we need that many of any movies other
To
than
be
the James
fair,
Bond
allegedly,
franchise.
there
Yeah.
are people that say sometimes Prowse was kind of prone to exaggeration on things also.
Yeah. So I guess to end this panel, when is the release? The supposed release date? It's about December of 2015 is what they're saying. So I guess in about 2 years, who knows? Maybe there will be a bunch of panels, either Star Wars 7, what went right and what we're looking forward to 8, or Star Wars 7, what went wrong and why we must hunt and kill J.J. Abrams.
Star Wars 7, mass suicide pact.
If he didn't get killed over Star Trek, he may survive Star Wars, unless they team up to take him down, which case
dear.
you do.
All right. Well, I would like you to thank you for coming through to sit through my ramblings and
really-
have a great rest of the time.
I would like to apologize if anyone over here had questions. It's just my neck isn't designed to turn over
I
there.
should try to get over
I would like to actually make one final statement. Alongside the magazine, I did get reminded of one other thing, and the reason I keep these is because they're a wonderful reminder about not to buy into hype. This is about another fun little film that came out in 1999,
Who
the
wants
same
to guess
summer
what
as
it
The
is?
Phantom Menace.
I actually like Wild Wild West.
The song is still good. I still like the song.
Apparently they only made that film so that the guy who directed it could use this giant mechanical spider.
Yes!
He
Yeah,
wanted
Kevin
to
Smith
do
talks
that
about that.
before.
He
The
has the
single
thing.
best story I've heard about it is apparently Kevin Kline wrote the script, thought it was the worst thing he'd ever done. And he'd never done that before on purpose.
Until he did Las Vegas.
You hear about like Kevin Smith talking about how whenever he was talking, like he goes in to talk to
Are
the
they the same age?
yeah, the same guy who produced this. He's like, why don't you put a giant spider in the new Superman movie? And he goes to talk to the other producers. We like you. You're gonna write this. Did he bring up the spider? He did. He brought up the spider every day with the spider.
Yeah.
I think he might have had some sort of arachnid-based trauma when he was younger.
He wants to get back at spiders as a species.
It's like this is like
Spiders are terrible.
That would get, but it would get
Oh, hey.
I think I was
Oh,
my
thank
bag in the
you.
other
To be
bag.
fair, they are the masterminds of something. So. Oh, see, I don't.
This fills up a monopoly.
You know, I will say this. If it means DC editorial goes, if Disney buys DC, if that means DC editorial goes away, I'm for it.
Does DC? WB owns the rights to all of the DC characters. They want to make a Green Lantern, they want to make a Flash, they want to make a Martian Manhunter, a romantic comedy. Tomorrow morning, it's Greenland.
However, they're not stopping Comcast from protecting that neutrality. Unless you place under.
Nice for coming out.
Yeah, I feel a little late though, but I was.
One thing,
I was at that.
I did want to say one thing about the.
One important about the.
Sorry for kind of
I just thought it.
running around the
Like,
whole day.
just, I mean, like, one of the cool
I
things
really
I
want
like
to
was
do
the
this
green
panel though,
colors.
so I'm like, you know
All
what, I'm gonna
the
take
colors
it.
are
I don't care.
nice and vibrant.
And
Yeah,
it went pretty
like
well.
the
I
thing
didn't want
with
to say it, but
it
I think
is
just
also.
the midichlorians.
I'm
sorry.
You
can come over and talk like I'm the camera.
History of the Sith.
But
I feel like,
so
yeah, I
what?
think
One of the
the
things with this
entire other
revisited
panel
half.